On this edition of The Best Times, we salute the generations of veterans who served during World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. They sacrificed, and they stood up when it was time to answer a nation's call. Funding for The Best Times is provided by... Since 1988, the H.W. Durham Foundation has been focused on aging issues, providing grants to programs like The Best Times to enrich and improve the quality of life for our older citizens. The Best Times is the only monthly news magazine exclusively for the age 50-plus reader. Your copy is free at over 200 locations, with important stories and news you don't want to miss. The Best Times is always the best. Trezevant, a life care community, a celebration of life. The responsible decision for your well-being now and in the long term. And being responsible has never been such a hoot. TrezevantManor.org. On tonight's edition of The Best Times, we hear the war stories of 7 veterans who served during World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. 7 people out of the millions who served this country and who have answered a nation's call.
We did our part. If I hadn't gone, you guys would be speaking German or Japanese.
E.W. Eddie Spencer Jr. was 21 years old, living in Detroit, Michigan, when Pearl Harbor was attacked. He and 2 buddies went to the Navy recruiting office to enlist.
I was having dizzy spells at that time, and I told a recruiter that, and he says, "Oh, we can't use you." The other guy only had one eye. And the other friend of mine had mastoids in the ears, and they wouldn't take all 3 of it.
The Army was less discriminating.
They gave me a physical again, and I took my shoes off. They had little linoleum floors. And I walked across the floor barefoot, and I'd suck up my feet were so flat, I'd suck up the linoleum. But the guy said, "Let me see your fingers." He said, "Yeah, you can work them. You're there."
Private Spencer served in the 403rd Artillery Battalion. He spent nearly 3 years fighting across North Africa and the entire length of Italy, earning 1 Silver Star and 4 Bronze Stars.
My eyes without my glasses were supposed to be 620. I could see 20/20 with glasses. But after I started taking examinations in the Army, they found my eyes improving. I figured if I stayed in long enough, I'd be 20/20 without glasses.
Because Seymour Hellman's eyesight was poor, he was assigned to the Army's Transportation Corps. He spent much of the war aboard Army supply ships, sailing in the Bering Sea, where the real enemy was the weather.
When you go through the Bering Sea, you had a lot of bad weather. Those Japanese called them tsunamis. We didn't know from tsunamis, we know hurricane. When you hit a wind of 140 miles an hour, and you're on a small ship, and I'm steering it. Have my legs wrapped around the spokes, and I'm trying to hold on to the wheel, and the captain is chewing my ass out because I'm not keeping it on course. The nose of the ship went down, and then over on the side. And believe it or not, the mast hit the water. And I thought we were goners, but luckily a wave knocked us straight back up. And it took 2 of us to straighten out the steering wheel to get us back on course.
Seymour Hellman spent almost the entire war aboard Army ships, It's a little-known fact that during World War II, the Army actually had more ships than the Navy.
I was at the University of Chicago studying for a master's in math, and then, you know, this patriotic feeling you get, yeah. So I decided I would join the Waves.
Lou Jones was one of 84,000 women who served in the Waves in World War II. For a year, she trained spotters in ship and aircraft identification, and then served in the Bureau of Ordnance in Washington, D.C.
There were several of us Waves working together. They called us the Powder Puffs. We were assigning weights of charge for all the propellants, for torpedoes, for all the 18-inch guns, for the little guns, all the propellants for the different artillery.
Lou continued her service after the war, rising to the rank of commander. She was briefly called back into duty during the Korean War.
Had very little training before I got on the hospital ship. Couldn't swim a lick. Didn't know how to swim. But it was ready, and so we started.
In April of 1943, Virginia Granger joined the Army Nursing Corps, assigned to the hospital ship USS Thistle, based in the Mediterranean Sea.
On one trip, we had two young men. They were younger than I was, I guess, because I was then about 24, 5, close to that anyway. And one had both arms off, and the other one had both legs off. And they were in bunks. There was an aisle. One was in a bunk here, and the other one was here. And I've often wondered how they came out. When they came aboard ship, they didn't want to talk and communicate. And as we got closer home, they would talk about how their mothers were going to take care of them and how they would react to their injuries and so on. And I've often wondered about those boys.
During the last 2 years of the war, Virginia made 12 round trips across the North Atlantic, transporting nearly 6,000 wounded soldiers to stateside hospitals.
My parents dreaded to see us go, because anytime you leave for a war, you don't know whether you'll come back or not. But the last thing I told them when I left home, that I would be home when the war was over. And several times I didn't know whether I was going to live up to that commitment or not.
Private Olin Pickens of the 805th Tank Destroyer Battalion landed in North Africa in January 1943. By February, he was thrust into action against General Erwin Rommel's Africa Corps in the Battle of Faid Pass.
So they said that you advance like you're going to attack, and when you hear them or see them start coming toward you, you stop and pull back to your original position and hold as long as you can. He said this is kind of like a suicide mission, because you're going to be either killed or captured when they come through us. They said each man will be on his own when the battle's over. And so later on, I heard that we lost 75 men there just in a little while in the battle. And I could hear the bullets going by, but never one struck me.
The suicide mission ended with Olin's capture by German forces.
You just have all different thoughts of what your people, what the country's going to say. If I get caught, what they going to say? Did you not run fast enough, or was you a coward, or what the deal?
Olin and over 100 more prisoners were force-marched across the Tunisian desert.
And they said if you fall out, we'll shoot you, because we don't have transportation to carry you, and we're not going to leave you behind. So if you fall out, we're going to shoot you. So we started walking, and we'd walk 4 hours and rest 10 minutes. And we continued to do that day and night. And about the second day, the guys that wasn't as strong as I was, they just fell flat on their face, just fell flat. So first and fell in from there, I started pick him up and tell him to let's go, they'll shoot you. And so when I picked him up, I looked over the side, and that German guard had his rifle on me, and he was motioning for me to go. And that was hard to do, turn him loose, knowing that he would get killed. But I had to let him go. And then from then on, anybody else that fell in front of me, I just have to step over them and keep going.
Olin was transported to Stalag 3B in Germany, then to a work camp near Furstenberg. The prisoners worked construction with picks and shovels from sunup to sundown. If they didn't work, they didn't eat. They got 2 meals a day, consisting of a cup of soup and a small square of bread.
Or if you did anything bad, they would want your name and number. They would name and number. That's what they'd say. Mine was 110607. That was my Stalag 7A number.
After a year and 23 days of imprisonment, Olin and a buddy named Honeycutt escaped. They fled south across Germany and made it to Prague, Czechoslovakia. They were within hours of making contact with the French underground when they were recaptured by the Germans. Upon their return to Stalag 3B, they were put in solitary confinement.
He put each one of us in some little dungeons made out of concrete. When they closed the door, it didn't have a knob on the inside. It just looked smooth like concrete. So that day when we got there, they didn't give us anything to eat. And so next morning about 9:30, they came in with a little square of bread about maybe 4 inches square at 9:30, and then they give us a pitcher of water that put in the dungeon with us, and so that was our meal for the day. So we didn't know how long this is going to last. So on that pitcher I had is made out of aluminum. So the concrete, when you strike aluminum across concrete, it'll make a mark. So every day at sundown, I'd make a mark. When they come to get us, they said we're going to, let you out. So I counted my marks and had 21 marks on it. So then I said, well, we've been in here 21 days and nights. My faith kept me going. While I was in that dungeon, I was telling you about over there, I wasn't in there by myself. Jesus was in there with me. Because every once in a while I'd think about, well, I'm just going to give up and die. It's just easy to die. It was hard to live. I mean, it took effort to keep living, but it was, if you just sit down, you just die real easy. So when I'd think about that, I'd hear this voice, what did you tell your mother and daddy when you left home? I thought, well, I told them that I'd be back when the war is over. And so when I thought that in my mind, it just gave me new strength. I didn't think about giving up and dying anymore. So actually my faith brought me home.
After 2 years, 2 months, and 5 days of imprisonment, Olin Pickens was liberated by American soldiers on April 21st, 1945. Later that year, he came home.
House is kind of up on a bank, and Papa and Mama was out on the little porch, and they saw me coming. Papa jumped off of that 8-foot bank, and he grabbed me, and he held on and hollered at some people over on the other hill over there chopping cotton, and they heard him holler. And he held on and held on. Then we went up to the house. Mama and my 2 nephews was up there, and when she called, she like to never turn loose, and we wasn't saying a word, wasn't saying a thing. And all of us was crying, and we was crying for joy. And we looked over at Mr. Will Hall. He was crying, but for a different reason. His son had just got killed. So that got me home the first time.
Private Olin Pickens was one of 143,000 American POWs in Europe. When he was captured, he weighed 195 pounds. When he was liberated, he weighed 120.
Your choppers are filled with blood when you get back. And a crewman get a bucket of water and wash it down. Get ready for the next flight.
Gerald Jacobson, Jake to his friends, enlisted in the Navy in 1948. In the Korean War, he flew combat missions over North Korea as a radar operator aboard a Douglas Sky Raider flying off the USS Hancock. He fought for 9 months and came home to an America that was grateful for his service.
Very supportive. Very supportive of the uniformed people. Of course, I can only speak to the Navy, but the Navy guys at that time, all of us, had a little half moon on our sleeve that said Korea, and people would walk by and pat you on the shoulder and say, hey, good job, you know, rah, rah for the flag. Very supportive.
In 1965, as a lieutenant commander, Jake led a 50-man unit into Vietnam, flying medevac missions in UH-1 Huey helicopters.
You're a target. A helo is a target. I mean, you flew about 1,000 to 1,500 feet. And hell, I could hit it with a slingshot at that level. So they had the rockets, they had their various types of rifles. When you were in low, that's what they used. So you were a target. Plus, you're not going fast. I mean, when you're aloft, you're going about 85, 90 knots. When you're down on the ground, you're not. I mean, you're down on the ground. And you're down on the ground for 3 minutes to load wounded and dead. And this was not only the servicemen, our servicemen, it was also Vietnamese servicemen, Vietnamese civilians that had been hurt, little babies, you know, the whole 9 yards.
There is one mission that Gerald Jacobson will never forget.
I had a woman, I'm going to choke up on this. I had a woman fall out of my helicopter. Helicopter can carry so many pounds, and that's it. And we had loaded up, and it was strictly a load of Vietnamese wounded. And she was trying to get on the helo, and I spoke Vietnamese at the time, and I said, no, in Vietnamese, I said, you can't go, we're too heavy, I'll never get this helo off the ground. And I pushed her off, and I had my co-pilot get us aloft. And we got up about 1,000 feet, and one of my crewmen said, Commander, there's a woman hanging out. Excuse me. There's a woman hanging on the skids. God. It was her. I went back there and I grabbed her hand, she grabbed my hand, and she let go. And I watched her cartwheel all the way to the ground. And it was about that time that her husband, who was on the helo, died. And I want to go back and find out where she fell.
Think about that very much?
All the time. Those are my nightmares. I feel like there was something I could do, but it was stupid because there was nothing I could have done.
For his actions in Vietnam from 1965 through 67, Commander Gerald Jacobson was awarded the Bronze Star with Valor and the Distinguished Flying Cross.
No, we didn't think we was achieving anything. The only thing we thought we was achieving is for us to stay alive, is to see the next day.
Calvin Darden was one of over 2 million men drafted into the Army during the Vietnam War, serving with the Delta Company of the 1st Battalion, 28th Infantry. His baptism of fire came before he'd even set foot on shore.
When we came off of the big old ship, then we got on the small tugboats and they took us to shore, but so many of us made it to shore and the rest of us, some of them didn't make it. We got hit, rocket fire. That was our welcoming party, our initiation to Vietnam.
Calvin's Delta Company fought in areas north of Saigon and across to the mountainous border with Cambodia. From their base camps, they went on regular patrols and met the enemy every time they went out.
Every time. Either when you're just leaving, your camp or you're on your way back. You're gonna run into something. It may be just two of them as a decoy, snipers. And all they want to do is, if they kill one GI, and if you kill them, that's no problem. If you kill 20 of them, there's no problem, as long as they kill one GI.
In January of 1968, the Tet Offensive began.
It was chaos day and night, sometime all day, sometime all night.
In February of '68, near the village of Tudak, Delta Company was on a reconnaissance patrol when the Viet Cong attacked just after dark. Calvin and 19 other men were setting up listening posts outside the base perimeter when VC forces moved in between Calvin's position and the camp.
And all of a sudden a flare went off. They had gotten some of our flares and everything. And when that flare went off, it was so many Viet Cong in the front of us. It was unreal. We knew we didn't have a chance. We blew our clay mines, and we had to try to make it back. The old man says, we can't come get you. You're going to have to make it back the best way y'all can. We don't know how we got over the Concertina Wire. We're talking about 6 feet tall. We don't know whether we went over it, went through it, or went under it. When we got back, the lieutenant that we talked to earlier, he had his radio man, he had, there was 2 medics in the bunker. It was his platoon sergeant in the bunker. A rocket came in and blew the bunker all to pieces. So they told us to try to get as low below the ground as we could, because they was going to, we had called in artillery, and they was going to be shooting Beehive. Beehive is point blank, and a lot of little pellets, okay? So we had to get below. And they did that, and they cleaned them out. We lost a lot of guys. Morning came, we had to take assessment of how many that we lost, and we had a lot of wounded all night long, moaning, you know, groaning, what have you. And our lieutenant and his crew was in the bunker. All we could do was, they gave us some plastic bags, and we picked the little pieces up. It was 2 Mexican, 3 whites, and 2 blacks was in the bunker. And we don't know, we just picking a piece of meat. There was no color. Out of the trees, off the grounds, and that's all we could do, put them in bags. And the chopper came in and picked the bags up.
Calvin spent a year in the field. His experiences in Vietnam have changed his life forever.
You really find out, are you a man or you a boy? You want to survive, or you don't care, you know. I think after Tet Offense, I think I became a man. But I became the wrong kind of man. I became a man that I didn't want to become.
So the war has changed you completely?
All my life. It's kind of hard for me to fit in, if you understand what I'm saying.
For his actions during the Tet Offensive in 1968, Calvin Darden was awarded 2 Bronze Stars with Valor.
I don't understand why. I don't understand why we have to have these wars.
What's the sacrifice of peace? The sacrifice of peace are the kids that are in the service fighting to maintain peace. Why do we have to fight to maintain peace? Why can't we just have peace?
Freedom is not free. not by any means. Every minute of the day, somebody got their life on line for your freedom.
Funding for the Best Times is provided by Trezevant, a life care community, a celebration of life. The responsible decision for your well-being now and in the long term. And being responsible has never been such a hoot. TrezevantManor.org. The Best Times is the only monthly news magazine exclusively for the age 50-plus reader. Your copy is free at over 200 locations with important stories and news you don't want to miss. The Best Times is always the best. Since 1988, the H.W. Durham Foundation has been focused on aging issues, providing grants to programs like The Best Times to enrich and improve the quality of life for our older citizens.